This is Salt and Burn This. My name is Sammy,
I'm Valerie.
and welcome back to our Supernatural Rewatch podcast. Here we go. I know. Just a quickie one. Since we've
Just a
already done the
quickie.
rewatch of season one.
Yes. I was actually surprised at we talked about certain things we thought we would mention in this particular
Yeah.
episode. And I was like, oh, it's not going to be that much. And then as I started taking notes, I was like, holy crap, there's a lot that happened in this season.
Yeah.
It's just
there
like
was.
once you add it up, it's like, wow, they actually they traveled far, they met tons
Mm-hmm.
of monsters, like more than I originally thought.
Right. I was surprised in a different way because I was like, oh my God, this is going to take so much time to do. And I didn't set enough time for me to do it. But there
Yeah.
was so much that I already knew just off the top of my head. I was surprised at myself. I was like, oh, thank
Yeah.
God I don't have to like watch every episode.
Every episode again. Yeah. Yeah. No, it was really cool to see, like, literally, they talk about the road so far.
Yeah.
It was actually refreshing to see, like, the road so far.
Right.
That
Yeah.
we absorbed, that we watched and we absorbed, and we kind of went on this journey with them. And so it was fun to kind of look at that in that manner. It's
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, we talked about this. Oh, we talked about that. Oh yeah, this means this.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this was good. I'm glad we're doing this little, wrap up to our
Mm-hmm.
first season,
Yeah,
and
me
to their
too.
first season.
Yes, me too.
Okay, so I just turned off the AC and it's already like 10
Yeah, I'm
degrees
sorry.
warmer in here. It's been raining here. I mean, this was the most amazing tech process. I know you guys just had a show get rained out.
Yeah,
We
that was a
we
bummer.
actually were actually able to tech through the rain, but and it's because our stage is fully covered and half of the audience is covered. So as far as our
Right.
tech rehearsal goes, we were okay. But it was so comical that every time somebody mentioned one of the main characters' names while singing, there was like a thunder boom. So it was, somebody would say Justice Scalia,
Oh my
kaboom.
God, that's amazing.
Oh my God, it was so funny that we were laughing so loud at the tech table that at one point the singers looked up at us like,
Yeah.
what are you doing?
Yeah.
We're like, this is really unprofessional of us, but it was just
Yeah. And yes, as you mentioned, our show got rained out.
such a bummer.
It was such a bummer.
And
But
then they didn't even make it through like his song. It was like halfway through the Toreador song and they called it.
I know that he sang like his big note, and it was right after his big note that they called it because it was all the park people and all the sound people were really like, we shouldn't be doing this. We shouldn't be doing this. And fair, there's like electrical outlets out in the open
Right. The
everywhere.
singers are actually plugged in electrically to things.
And then it became like, okay, if the thunder strikes one more time, then we have to call it just because the lightning is too dangerous.
So yeah.
And it was like right after I went over to the ladies' tent and I was just like, just so you know, we're probably going to call it, but I don't know yet. And I stuck my head out and was talking to Sarah, the director.
Mm-hmm.
And she was just like, do you think they're going to call it? And I was like, probably. And then it was like, kaboom! And I was like, okay, yes.
And we're done.
Yes.
Yep. Toreador, kaboom!
Yeah.
And we're done. Sorry, folks.
But it was at least not, yes. Everyone got to sing at least once. So everyone got to be heard. Everyone got to be on stage for at least a little bit. Everyone in the audience stayed through the entire time. Like they just had their umbrellas out and their ponchos on and they were just there for the ride. They had been there since 5:30. The show started at 7. And like the rain just kept getting heavier and heavier and heavier and heavier. And no one moved. I was kind of like pleasantly shocked. But that was nice. It's just like, oh my gosh, everyone like enjoyed it so much.
Yeah.
It's a shame that we couldn't finish it, but I totally understand why we
not
had
wanting
to stop.
people to get struck by lightning while they watch opera.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, I'm glad that like it was coming together. Everyone had like the emotion of, yay, we get to do this, a live audience and singing with
Yeah.
colleagues again, even if it was just for this much time. It's like we tried and we,
Mm-hmm.
So good. I'm so glad.
Yeah.
I'm so glad. Supernatural.
Yes. First, I want to talk about Just a couple of things that I happened upon after the fact. One of them was
Mhm.
because I watched the special features on the final DVD disc,
Sure.
and also a couple
Uh-huh.
of interviews that I read regarding what the show would have possibly been, which I thought was like, oh my god, this show would have totally been not the one that we know and love. So first off, Eric Kripke definitely did wanted to do one with urban legends across the country,
Oh,
and
okay.
like
He did or did not?
he did. He
He
did.
did. Okay,
That
sorry.
was always part of the core substance of the show.
Uh-huh.
But his first turn at the pitch was like some guy, like an investigator basically, or a detective that kind of just like went around and did it that way, almost like an investigative kind of show.
Mhm.
And the networks are like, we're not really interested in that. The ghosts and stuff sound cool, but not the
This
way
an
it's.
investigator. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. Scrapped that. Then did a new pitch of, brought in the brothers, Sam and Dean. However, both parents would have died either in the pilot or pre-pilot, like they had
Their
died because
backstory.
of, yeah.
Yeah.
And Sam would have been living with an aunt, I think. And then Dean would have come to get Sam to
From
like
the
hunt
aunt.
ghosts,
Yeah.
but he would have had to give Sam the truth is out there talk. Like Sam did not know that things existed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That still could work.
Right. And I think the networks were like, okay, that's all right, but maybe tighten it up a little bit. If it's closer, but not there
Mhm.
yet. And I believe that it was David Nutter, the guy who directed the pilot,
Mhm.
and also the second episode. Apparently, he's just like a pilot guy. Like he's basically kind of like a script doctor and things like that.
Sure.
He just knows how to direct
How
pilots.
to
Like
make
that's
it,
what he
yeah.
does. But then he took it, and I think it was also McG,
Mhm.
one of the producers, right? Executive
Yep.
producer.
Mhm.
Then they tightened it up to what it is now because they decided that's way too much exposition to then have to, bring Sam up to speed, and it was just a little bit too much. It was
Yeah.
that plus all the
Need to
ghosts that they had to fight.
better to just jump in. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's already established that they know the world and they've been doing this their whole life. And then
Right.
they do the
Right.
Route
The
66 kind of
challenge.
stuff.
Yeah. Right. Right. The introduction of things they don't quite know about, but they
Yeah.
should expect.
So I just thought that was a
Wow.
really cool evolution of the creative
It's
process.
it's really cool to hear that like these ideas don't come out fully baked.
Yeah.
That the idea is there and then and it gets presented and no, we don't want this. And
Yeah.
well, how about this? No, we still don't want this. And going back and even though your original idea would work,
Mhm.
you still go back to the drawing board and try again and try again and try again.
Yeah.
And that it's an evolution and it's a collaboration. It's not just one person doing it. It's like I
Right.
have this idea. Let me bring in my friend who knows, this more about something than I do. And so it becomes this collaborative piece. And I love that. In
Mhm.
a in college, I got to work for a theater company that did mostly new works. And a
Mhm.
lot of the new works were actually created in the rehearsal process.
Yeah. Yeah.
We had the idea for the show and then we
Mhm.
literally spitballed and created the show in the rehearsal process, which then became the show. That's not how
Right.
things always work, but we had that opportunity. I'm so thankful to be able to see
Yeah.
that creative process of what we think is going to work and what we fell in love with, but we end up having to cut because it doesn't end up flowing with the rest of the narrative, even though it was a fully monumental thing. Yeah, so I love that. I love the idea of knowing that Hollywood isn't perfect,
Yeah.
and Eric Kripke didn't come up with this like perfect idea.
Yeah.
It it took
It
what,
was a
10
team
years?
effort. Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
10 years to come up with something that finally got produced.
Right. And then there's also just a couple things that I missed that someone brought to my attention
Uh-huh.
from a couple of episodes. This guy's a really old friend of mine that we just occasionally check in with each other.
Like
Um,
he's not old, he's just an
oh
old
no,
friend.
from a long time ago. Like we've known each other
Dang.
for a very long time.
Okay,
He's my
he's not
age.
an old.
So whether you consider that old, I don't know, but whatever. Um, Also, one of the most intelligent people that I've ever met in my life.
Yeah.
So the fact that he's watching this show and then listening to us
Oh, I know she's
just
like,
strikes me kind of funny, you know? Yeah.
hi.
So he was talking about listening to it on the lawnmower, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I was shouting out a couple things that you missed." I was like, "Well, tell me, like, lay it on me. What did we miss?" And
Yeah.
they're very
Are they
like,
really
of course,
obvious things that we missed?
no, I don't
Oh,
think so.
okay.
No, they're like something only he would pick up. Well, maybe. One of them was in Hookman. Because you knew that they were two different urban legends, right? There was the Hookman, like the hook on the car, and then
Yep.
separately the one with the
I
writing
know
on the
what you did
wall.
last summer. Yeah.
Kind of. Or aren't you glad you didn't turn
Aren't you
on the
glad I
light?
didn't turn on the lights? Yeah.
Yes. But I think we were struggling with like how are these connected? Why did they pull them together into one? But he says like they're both urban legends about like anti-sex, like stories about people having unlicensed sex and then being punished for it. I
Right.
was like, oh
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
because the
Yeah.
guy was being pushy with the girl. The roommate was
Yeah.
kind of a party girl. Not
Pushing the yeah. Not pushing
didn't yeah
sex, but just,
pushing
pushing
sexy.
inhibitions. Yeah.
Yeah, the preacher was having an affair with somebody.
Mhm.
Very
And
smart. But
he
then
and
this
he got
one,
hooked. Yeah.
yeah, but then this one that he noticed was in Wendigo. Um,
Mhm.
I said something about one of the kids in the tent reading like a really large book
Yeah.
right before
Yeah.
they got caught. And he was like, from the brief description you gave, I recognized it as, well, he said the hero's journey. But when I looked it up, it was the hero with 1,000 faces. But the hero's journey is in that because it's a compilation by Joseph Campbell, which is his biography, but its significance is that he studied under Carl Jung and spent his career breaking down myths and stories and created the idea that all stories share the same structure, which is what every modern writer has studied to create TV and movies. It's basically like the Bible that hero
Of
writers use.
storytelling.
Yeah. I
Wow.
know. I was like, all right. Why am
What?
I even here?
Well, no, it's just so funny because it totally contrasts. I hate to say this, but a lot of the
Yeah.
supernatural fandom is all about the minuscule story points of love and sex and this and that, and they're not talking about the finer details
Uh-huh.
of what the writers did, of what their story. Even when I point out things like props, I'm like the horseshoe is upside down instead of right side up,
Uh-huh.
intentionally to show these things. The fact that that book that you recognized as something to look into, that somebody else then listening to us talk about it, made a bigger point about, that's huge.
Yeah.
That's a detail that they did on purpose. The
Yeah.
writers,
Uh-huh.
the prop department, it was intentionally done, but for how many people in the world to notice?
Yeah.
You know, just a handful of people. Yeah, that's super cool. I love that.
I
I
know.
love that.
And then I was like, well, then do you know anything about the Keys of Solomon? Because it was before we released our final episode. And he's
Yeah.
like, well, I know about the lesser keys. And then proceeds to send me like 4 paragraphs about it, which I will not read for you. But
Oh my gosh.
so thank you, Kenny, so much for that.
Oh my, that's
He,
amazing.
his new title that he requested was metaphysical consultant, like a meta kind of guy, or
A
librarian. I could
meta
also call him librarian because he knows every book
dramaturg.
in the universe. Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay, so those were just the things that I wanted to throw out there before we get into the tracking minutia.
Hmm.
All right, so here is the season 1 monster list, monster of the day, if we will. So first, at the time, it's an unknown spirit, which kills Mary Winchester and then later Jessica. Not killed, so. And then there's the spirit, specifically the woman in white, and they kill her by bringing her back to the source of her torment, I guess you could say, or her murder.
Yeah.
Back to the house that she had been avoiding, and then her children drag her back to hell.
Was it her murder? Because she killed herself, didn't she?
She did. What did I
She
say?
committed. You said
I
back
meant
to
her
this.
murder. I guess I meant her murders, like her
Okay, she
act
murdered her
of
children.
murdering the
Okay,
children. Yeah, that's what I
okay.
meant. In Wendigo, the spirit was a Wendigo. Its target are the loose campers somewhere every so often. Killed by fire, specifically Molotov cocktail, I think, right?
Flare gun.
A flare gun, that's right. Flare gun. They'd prep a Molotov cocktail, I think, and then it
Yes.
gets destroyed. That's right. Dead in the Water is a spirit, specifically a murdered boy. They talk about salt and burning him, but there is nothing to salt and burn, so then the spirit is subdued by the sacrifice of its murderer. Phantom Traveler is a demon, first known appearance of a demon.
Black smoke demon.
Yes. Black, well,
Black.
it wasn't even really smoke. It was like a beady,
Smudge.
beady thing, demon. A demon of plane crashes, specifically, I think is what they deemed it as. Like, it was a demon of not a natural disaster, but a 21st century disaster.
I think that's pretty accurate.
Yeah. Killed by exorcism. In Bloody Mary, it's Bloody Mary.
Aptly named.
Her victims are like secret keepers. Her demise is brought on by breaking the origin, like her mirror with her in it, and then further by a reflection of herself.
Yeah, the truth cast back upon her.
Yeah. In Skin, the monster is a shapeshifter, killed by a silver bullet. And I would say that was I think that was kind of the first one that it was just like, this is the remedy to this kind of monster. You know, like the other ones were just kind of guessing, you know, like, oh, maybe we do this. I don't know. But this one was, oh, we know how to kill this. It's with the silver bullet.
Right.
Hookman. Monster was Hookman. Going after immoral people. And here's the first one, the salt and burn, an actual salt and burning of the remnants of his hook. Because his hook was, as we know, melted down into various things, and they just had to salt and burn all of the silver. This is going to be so easy because all of these one word. In Bugs, the monster was Bugs. Caused by a curse. The remedy was just to A, get out of the way, or B, just wait it out for the 20-minute nighttime that it ended up being.
Right, the one day.
No, maybe it was 6 minutes. It was 6 minutes from midnight to sunrise, technically, in this show. Stupid. All right.
How do you feel about that, Sammy?
In Home, the monster was Poltergeist.
Yes.
It was destroyed by the spirit of Mom sacrificing herself after they failed by putting hex bags in
the walls of the house.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In Asylum, the monster was a spirit, specifically the head psych doctor, who was crazy. And again, they destroyed him by salting and burning his corpse.
His remains, yes.
Scarecrow, the monster is a scarecrow.
I'm going to stop laughing, but it's still pretty funny.
He was killed by burning his origin tree. In Faith, this one was tricky because technically the quote-unquote monster was a reaper, or the supernatural thing was a reaper. But really the monster was the preacher's wife.
Yeah.
Who had him in a bind.
Yeah.
And the bond was broken by breaking
the amulet with
thing with blood in it.
Yeah.
And then the reaper destroyed her.
Yes.
Route 66 was a racist truck.
Racist phantom truck.
Right. Racist truck spirit. Killed by leading it onto hollowed ground. In Nightmare, again, tricky because there wasn't really a monster, but the supernatural thing was Max, who was human. And he met his unfortunate end by suicide.
Yeah. That was sad.
It was sad because they didn't want to kill him. That was not the goal of that episode.
Right.
In The Benders, the monsters were humans. Really fucked up kind of humans.
Yeah. Yeah. Who deserved everything they got.
Yup. They were either shot or captured.
Daddy.
In Shadow, the monsters were Devas, who were the Shadow Demons, and Meg. Meg was the one who was controlling them.
Yep.
And they didn't kill those. They just got out of the way.
They did not.
Hell House, the monster was a tulpa, which is basically a made-up spirit, that people kind of believed into reality.
Existence. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And they killed him maybe by burning the house? Question mark?
Question mark? Yeah, we don't really know.
No,
We
he's
have no
gone for
proof of
now.
his demise. Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Something wicked. A striga who feeds off of children. Killed with wrought iron bullets while feeding. Very specific way to kill
It's
his
a very
monster.
limited time frame for
Yes.
destruction there.
Provenance was a spirit, specifically one that came out of a painting of a demonic child. They destroyed her by salt and burning her hair that was on the doll in the mausoleum. Dead Man's Blood, vampires, killed by decapitation, or the cult.
Right. Right. I forgot about that.
Salvation, and in Devil's Trap, we have Meg / other various demons killed by or gotten rid of through exorcism or the cult.
Or the cult.
And that is the season 1 glossary of monsters.
Of monsters. Wow. And what I love is each monster, even if it was a cut and dry, like you need to kill them by cutting off their heads, they don't. Sam and Dean don't always automatically know that. They have to. Part of their journey is to figure out how to kill them or what it is, so that they can look up in the book how to kill them.
Yeah.
So none of this comes easily to them, and if it does come easily, they've done something wrong, and they're like, wait a second, that was too easy.
Yeah. A nice variety of monsters, though, in this first season. A few repeats, which isn't a bad thing. It's not 22 different things.
Right.
But it's also not just 5 different things spread out
Right.
through 22 episodes. So.
Right. And they don't always succeed. Like they don't. There isn't always an end determination to the whatever the monster is. Sometimes there's just an end to the journey of the people who are affected by the monster.
Yeah.
So that I thought that was interesting too, that it's not a cut and dry, the heroes win every time. I love it when the heroes win. But at least it makes them fallible. I mean, granted, they get beaten up almost in every episode by whatever it is they're trying to chase down. But in the end, sometimes they win and sometimes they don't. And I like that. Well, since there was that many monsters, there was almost twice as many personas and personalities that Dean and Sam have had to disguise themselves as in order to get through the stories of the monsters. And I will do exactly what you did. I'm just going to read them faster because for every monster, there's like 3 personas that Dean and Sam would put on. In the pilot episode, so I am including things like stolen credit cards, just so you know.
Okay.
There's the name Hector Ephraimian on a credit card that they use. Clearly, neither of them are Hectors. Dean calls himself Ted Nugent. They both call themselves, Dean and Sam present themselves as U.S. Marshals, but they're not in disguise or not in a uniform. They just call themselves U.S. Marshals. And oddly enough, they are believable in the pilot episode. I mean, one of the cops says, "Aren't you a little young?" And they're like, "Yes, thank you. Thank you for noticing." They also, in that same episode, present themselves as one of the killed boys' uncles. Troy is the guy who gets eaten in his cabriolet, and they present themselves as his uncle. And at one point, Sam represents himself as a reporter to the husband of the white woman, the woman in white.
Right.
So in that episode alone, there's 5 different personas, right? Okay, so Wendigo, this gets easier. They present themselves as park rangers and environmental studies majors. So neither of which are very convincing. In Dead in the Water, they represent themselves as U.S. Wildlife Service agents, but they represent themselves as agents Ford and Hamill. Star Wars.
Yes.
Shout out. Phantom Traveler, Dean calls himself Dr. James Hetfield from Metallica.
Yes, that's right.
But they are also Homeland Security agents. And this is when they don their first disguises, their first
Yes.
suits. It's like their Blues
Yes.
Brothers suits. So this is the first time we see them in a disguise that's not just a badge and not just themselves.
Yeah.
Um, and they look terribly awkward in their new Homeland security agent suits. So moving on to Bloody Mary, they disguise themselves, or they call themselves medical students from Ohio State,
Mm-hmm.
and then later on they are reporters. Again, no specific uniforms or costumes for that. In Skin, Dean is presented as a policeman, but then he clarifies that as I'm a detective,
Yeah.
which is then called bullshit on later.
Yeah.
In Hookman, they're fraternity brothers
Oh
or
my God,
transfers to the
yeah.
university.
Oh my God, that's right. They were in the frat house painting
The
that guy
frat
purple. Merv.
purple Merv. Yes. Oh my god. Um, in Bugs, they say that they're nephews of one of the guys who died in the pit of Bugs.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they also present themselves as prospective home buyers, and everybody
Yes.
presumes that they're a gay couple.
Yes.
Uh, and which
The
they're like, no,
first
no,
of
no.
many.
Yes, they're like, no, no. We're looking for my dad. Our father is looking for a house to buy. Um, they also say that they are students of an anthropology 101 class at the university, trying to
Mm-hmm.
get information out of that professor. They then try to use that same quote disguise again with a tribal spokesperson who calls bullshit on
Yes.
their lie. And then they also fleetingly try to tell somebody that they're from the gas company. That's not
Yeah.
really a disguise. It was just something that they said on the phone trying to get somebody out of the house. They
Right.
were with the gas
Mm-hmm.
company. So, whew, okay. Home.
You're only on episode 8.
Yeah, I know. I told you there's so many compared to the number of monsters. In Home, Dean tries to tell the woman who lives in their childhood home. He starts out by saying we're federal agents, but Sam cuts him off and says, "No, we used to live here."
Yeah.
And so they go with the truth in that episode.
Mm-hmm.
But then later they do say that they're cops. I think they were talking to
Oh, the
Dad's
John's friend in the
mechanic.
mechanic shop.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
exactly.
That's right.
Exactly. In Asylum, this is again a random thing that Dean says. He calls himself Nigel Tufnell, who is from Spine. This is Spinal Tap.
Mm-hmm.
But he's Nigel Tufnell from the Chicago Tribune. So he calls himself a reporter. He's actually the name of someone from This is Spinal Tap. Scarecrow, another celebrity name that Dean calls himself, John Bonham from Led Zeppelin, but he totally gets
Mm-hmm.
called out
Yes.
on it by the pie shop owner,
Yeah.
or the drugstore owner, who's like,
Yeah.
"Isn't that the drummer from Led Zeppelin?" In Faith, now this I didn't know. This I didn't know. In Faith, Dean's credit card is David Berkowitz. Well, when he's paying for, I'm sorry, it's when Sam is paying for Dean's hospital stay. The credit card he hands
Oh, yeah,
over,
yeah, yeah.
the name
Dean
on the credit
Berkowitz.
card is David Berkowitz.
Oh, David. Mm-hmm.
David Berkowitz, do you know who that is? I didn't know who this
Mm-mm.
was.
Mm-mm.
The son of Sam, serial killer. The guy who said that he listened to his neighbor's dog telling him to
Uh-huh.
murder people.
Oh my
That
God.
was the son of Sam. Yeah, that's the name on the credit card that Sam used to pay for Dean's hospital bill.
Ooh.
I had no idea. The next episode is Route 666. Their big disguise is that they're insurance investigators, insurance agents investigating a client.
Yeah.
That was their big disguise. Nightmare. This is one of my favorite
This
disguises.
was my favorite disguise as well.
Yep, I was going to ask you. That was going to be one of my questions.
Mm-hmm.
Father Simmons and Father Freddie. So they're they're from the band Kiss, but they're dressed as priests, and they
Priest.
are in priest costumes, and
Yep.
I loved it. In that same episode, I think Sam calls himself Detective McCready, from the Michigan State Police. He's not in costume. I think he just
Mm-hmm.
he's calling on the phone for information, and he uses that name to get
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Benders. They're dressed as state sheriffs. So they're in like full blown sheriff outfits with the hats, with the coats. And Dean goes so far as to go in disguise as Officer Gregory Washington, who turns out to be an overweight black man. And Dean gets like busted that way, that he
Mhm.
chose the wrong the wrong fake ID to use. In a Shadow, they are PF Alarm Company employees, and they even
Yeah.
have their
Mhm.
own names, Dean and Sam, stitched on the front of their little coveralls. So that's like another full
Mhm.
costume
Yes.
that they're wearing. And they both comment on how much they don't like these costumes because they're like high school play
Yeah.
quality costumes. Hell House, um, they, oh God, Dean says that they're like Hollywood producers or Hollywood scouts looking for special talent in the bar. Um, and then later they say that they're reporters from the Dallas Morning News. So no costumes involved there, just
Mhm.
fake identities. Something Wicked. Okay, the funny part about Something Wicked is Sam is his ID is Dr. Jerry Kaplan, but it's Dr. Jerry Kaplan bikini inspector.
Yes.
Um and while they're not in like disguise, they are in like very university professorial looking suits, like, elbow patches on the
Mm.
on their suits. And I have to back up for a second. In Hell House, it wasn't that they were Hollywood scouts. They didn't say they were Hollywood scouts. They said they were Hollywood producers in order to get the Ghost Facer guys
Oh
to leave
yeah.
town.
Yeah.
So that's what that was.
Well,
They
they were
were
Hollywood scouts in the previous episode to the
in
ladies
the
in the bar.
in Providence.
Yeah.
So in the
No, in
next episode.
is it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. You're
It's
right. You're right.
Dean being the like really
He's
skeezy.
got so many horn dog things going on there. Yeah.
It's hard to keep track. So moving on to, again, Providence, they are LA TV scouts looking for people with special skills. That was Dean at the bar being a horn dog. They also try to pull off being art dealers with Connors Limited. And luckily for Sam, he actually studied art history, so he could actually kind of bullshit his way through that situation where Dean was completely in over his head. Not no art education.
Nope, just keeping himself occupied by
Snacks.
the snacks. What do you call them? The things they pass around?
Hors d'oeuvres.
Yeah,
Amuse
I feel it.
bouches.
Maybe amuse bouches. There's like
Mini quiches.
when I used to serve events and stuff. There's like a name for that kind of thing.
Oh, okay.
An
I
amuse
just know
bouche.
that
That's a nice. It's a nice word.
an amuse bouche. I know that the one was like, "Can I get you another mini quiche?"
Mm-hmm,
And he's
mm-hmm.
like, "Nah, this is good." Dean eating, talking with his mouth full. So Salvation, individually, they're different officers getting information, like getting access to medical information in the
Yes.
hospitals. Some they did have some medical ID badges, but I couldn't see what they were or what kind of
Right.
medical ID badges.
Yeah.
So, and again, no costumes, just badges and saying that they were these
Yes.
people. And finally, in Devil's Trap, the big disguise is firefighters. They are in
Yes.
full blown firefighter regale, masks, tanks, the full thing. So that's all I had for personas.
Oh, that's it?
That's it. That was it. Um, I wanted to ask you real quick, did you have a favorite persona?
I know
And
the priest definitely.
the priest.
Absolutely.
That's what I did. A big circle and a star. I was like, the best entrance, the best like lead in to what their characters were. Yep, definitely my favorite disguise was the priest. That and the names. I mean, the names were perfect.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that love that. I think they did. I'm glad they didn't go full blown like every time they were an alias or a persona. They didn't go full blown costume. They didn't turn
Right.
it into that kind of show.
It was sprinkled in here and there.
Yeah. Yeah. So when they did have to wear a disguise, it was either so outrageous or it
Yeah.
was so perfect
Uh-huh.
that, it made sense. All right. So we've done monsters, we've done personas.
Oh, I totally forgot to ask you like what your favorite monster was.
Oh, my favorite monster. Well, it's funny. I thought about this and I, it's, I'm going to tell you the monster, but it's also my favorite episode.
Okay.
And I think that's why it's my favorite monster.
Uh-huh.
Dead in the Water was
Hmm.
my favorite episode. You don't see the monster, until like the end. You just know that there's something malevolent there. And so the scariness and the spookiness is based on like, what is it? What is it? What is it?
Mhm.
So, and then it turns out that it's a, the ghost of a child, but it's not an evil child. It's a child who was, wrongly murdered. So you
Right.
can't fault the monster for it being a monster, you
Mhm.
know? And as far as we know, it was placated by the self-sacrifice of the man who actually murdered the child that made it the evil ghost that it was. So I'm gonna say that it highlighted the heroes. I don't know if you know, but I'm big on heroes. That both Sam and Dean shown as individual heroes in that episode in different moments.
Mhm.
And it wasn't because they killed the monster. It's because they rescued the damsel in distress. They rescued the child in distress.
Mhm.
And so for some reason, and plus the special guest stars on that episode. So
Right.
because of how much I really enjoyed that episode, it makes me really, really like that monster and how they represented that monster. So there you go. Dead in the Water, the dead child, ghost child was my favorite. How about you?
I have a kind of a dual answer because my favorite monster was probably the scarecrow just because I
Oh,
I
yeah.
really liked the creativity that went into that monster. It was like this, what was it, like a Viking god or something like that that they turned
Yeah,
into like an
Nordic. Yeah, it was.
Americana thing. Yeah, Nordic, right. Um
Yes. Yeah.
but then they turned it into something, that's in a farm, or that's like up to date. I just thought that was really unique. It was
Right.
my favorite twist that they did with like an urban legend or a scary thing. But my favorite episode, and I did also like this twist, was Faith, because that was really the episode that it started to stop being so much like, oh, kill the monster, move on, kill the monster, move on, kill the monster, move on. They
Hmm.
really had to kind of take an introspective look, like look at themselves and at their actions and say, is what we're doing right? Like this creates a conundrum, this whole situation.
Right. Consequences
Because
to our actions. Yeah.
right, yeah.
Yeah.
And this Roy, who at first you thought was the bad guy, controlling the Reaper or
Right.
bringing the Reaper onto other people, was not the actual person. He
Right.
just thought he was doing
Doing God's
literally
work.
God's work.
Yeah, like in a good way, as opposed to like what we all think of like tent revival, people are just
Right.
hucksters and stuff like that.
Yeah.
He actually wasn't.
Yeah. So there was all this kind of like this discussion about like morality and like who are we to say who can live and who dies. It wasn't just so cut and dry like it was in
Yeah.
the previous ones. But
Yeah.
I loved the Reaper, the look of the Reaper.
Yes.
I
Yes.
loved
Oh,
that.
yeah, because I did too. I did too. He wasn't overblown. It was a new type of creature and it made sense.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't one of those, oh, okay. I mean, talk about stupid Rawhead. Rawhead was just this weird, ugly monster thing. Which
Right.
again, it wasn't the monster of the week. It was just a add
Just a
on,
blip. It was like
a
five
blip,
seconds.
right? But still, I'm glad they didn't make that type of monster into a monster of the week. Whereas the Reaper was like, oh, I could actually see this happening.
Yeah, and
You know,
again, a really cool twist on something that has been burned into our brains forever. It's like the cloak and
the
sometimes it's a
scythe,
skeleton, the
yeah,
scythe, yeah. So here was
yep.
just like this the oldest thing on earth in a nice suit.
Right. Very well dressed.
Yeah.
Very bespoke.
Yes, a bespoke reaper. I love that.
uh, yeah. Two. That was actually Faith was going to be one of my favorite episodes. In general, as an overall favorite, not
Yeah.
just because of one thing.
Uh-huh.
Because again, I loved the guest star. I loved the story. I love
Yes.
the humanity that
Mhm.
Dean is faced with, that Sam sees. They're growing as individuals with each
Yeah.
like episode. Well, not with each because there's definitely regressions, but
Yeah.
so I really, but I was more in the end for me it was Dead in the Water. And same thing with the makeup and the actualization of the ghost child in the lake.
Mhm. Mhm.
It was definitely a stolen image from the Japanese horror movies, but it was well done. He
Yeah.
wasn't this overblown. It was just enough creep factor, and you saw just enough of it to be scary and
Yeah.
ominous and lethal.
Yeah.
So
No,
I
Dead in the Water
liked
was
it.
definitely in my top 5. So,
Good. Okay, good. Yay.
okay.
Yay.
So what's next?
We can either do a quick map quest rundown, which should be super easy, or we can talk about outstanding props slash costumes, if you like.
Okay, yeah, let's do the map quest stuff first, and then we
Okay.
can do the props.
Okay. Basically, in order of appearance on the map,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to read down um, all the places they've been. All right, ready?
Yes. Go.
Lawrence, Kansas, um, Jericho, California, Stanford, California, Palo Alto, California, Blackwater Ridge, somewhere that's fictional, Lake Manitowoc, Wisconsin, which is fictional, Nazareth, Pennsylvania, Toledo, Ohio, Valerie, Fort Wayne, Indiana, St. Louis, Missouri, Anchorage, Iowa, Sapulpa, Oklahoma, Rockfield, Illinois, Burkittsville, Indiana, which is spelled differently if you actually go there. Somewhere in Nebraska, there was one Chiron that was just like Nebraska.
Yeah.
Um, Cape Girardeau, Missouri, Saginaw, Michigan, Hickory, Minnesota, Chicago, Illinois, Richardson, Texas, Fitchburg, Wisconsin. Shout out to my family. New Paltz, New York, Manning, Colorado, which is fictional. Lincoln, Nebraska, Blue Earth, Minnesota, which I thought was fictional, which is not. Jefferson City, Missouri, and Sioux Falls, South Dakota. So, in the grand scheme of things, only like 3 or 4 fictional places, which still makes me ask
You missed
why.
Salvation, Iowa.
Oh, Salvation. It's because I can't read my handwriting. Yeah, it's because I can't read.
Because that one is fictional.
And I wrote that. I just didn't read it. So, Sammy, you can call me back next week and say, you know what you missed? Salvation, Iowa. But again, I want to ask why? I mean,
I
did
never
the
found
name.
that answer.
Yeah,
I
I
did like
didn't.
try and look up like why it was like a hard thing to ask Google, you know what I mean? Like
Dear Google,
right.
why is
I
Eric
never
Kripke?
I never found out. Salvation, Iowa I can understand because they definitely needed an appropriate name.
Sure.
Um but no, the other ones I don't know. And but also I didn't hear you said Sapulpa, Oklahoma for
Hmm.
bugs, but there's another place in Oklahoma that it takes the place mostly in, but that was fake, whatever it was.
So it's the town that the housing district is in, but not where the Native Americans were that they were talking to,
Yeah.
because they go to Sapulpa to find the answers.
Yeah.
And I didn't write down the name of the town
Okay. I
because
have it.
I
Hold
suck.
on. I remember that one sticks in my brain just cuz I've lived in Oklahoma, so they talk about Atoka. I think I have that written down here for some reason. And Oasis Plains was the not real
Oasis
place.
Plains, that's right. And I think I didn't write that down because I thought it was the name of the housing development as opposed to the town that they were in.
Right.
So that's why I didn't write that down.
Right.
Okay. Wow. Strike two, Valerie.
No, Oasis I just like found this note. Oasis Plains because that was a Chiron underneath it said Oasis Plains, Oklahoma, is near Atoka Valley. Atoka Valley was not like technically a real name, but Atoka was real.
Okay.
And it was also farther away than they said it was from the fake or the Sepulpa or whatever.
See, be thankful that we didn't actually map quest the miles.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
and we couldn't because we never knew what town they actually were starting in.
Right,
So,
right.
I mean,
Starting in,
times
and
we did, but
also
most times we didn't.
also the fake towns, like where would they have been in the
Right.
state?
Map quest that.
No.
Okay. Okay. I'm gonna tell you what stuff I thought would be standout props.
Sure.
And you can agree or disagree. So, Dad's Journal, number
Yeah.
one for this season, I would
Yeah.
say. It was like their encyclopedia of monsters and of
Mhm.
how to kill said monsters, to help and augment their limited knowledge at this point.
Yeah.
They do have a hunter's knowledge, but Dad's journal has more, and help them out a lot.
Yeah.
The Impala, not technically a prop, but I would say 100% important piece of scenery.
Right.
um and of course the license plate on the Impala became a big thing with Kansas City year 2005.
Mm-hmm.
um the the EMF meter, the first one is Walkman EMF meter, which to me will always be the EMF meter. um and then his updated EMF detector, which was a little bit more
Yeah.
modern looking. It was used a number of times, not every time, but it was used at least 3 or 4 times in the season to
I
indicate
have
whether or not.
just from memory. I have, well, its first appearance was in Phantom Traveler.
Hmm.
They definitely used it in Home. In
Scarecrow.
Nightmare they brought it out, but it wasn't picking up anything. And also in Hell House they brought it out, but the
The
antenna
power
thing,
thing,
yeah,
yeah.
was fucking with it.
Yeah, and he used it in Scarecrow. That's how he knew when to pull off the road at the orchard,
Oh,
because
that's
his
right.
EMF
Mm-hmm.
detector was going nuts in the back seat.
Yes, and I'm sure there are more times. Those were just the ones that I specifically remember.
Yeah,
And in
yeah.
Asylum, I think they used it too, but I think maybe it also
They
was not working correctly.
Yeah.
I remember
Yeah,
they had
because
a video camera that they were like catching orbs in or something
right,
like
right.
that,
They
and it was the
Yeah.
one and only time they ever talk about orbs.
Mentioned about orbs, and they're like, let's not do that again.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. So, and I'm sure we're going to see the EMF detector again. It's a simple prop. But it's an indicator of supernatural. So I think we're going to
Yes.
see it again and again. Dean's, good old Dan, Dean's Zippo lighter, which he uses to
Oh,
salt and
yeah.
burn. And
Uh-huh.
he's, Mr. Foop Foop, he's super
Yep.
quick with it. It kind of is like his Mr. Cool thing. We didn't see it a lot, but anytime something was salt and burned, it was
He was with the Zippo.
with
Mm-hmm.
his Zippo. The Colt obviously is a
Right.
prop to be reckoned with.
Yes.
Um,
That was only in the last 3 episodes,
right,
but
right, but still, it made such a. I mean, it's what drove those episodes was
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
the Colt. This is little, but it's something to take note of. Bobby's flask. He introduces the boys to traveling with holy water in a flask, but then
Yeah.
also being basically a functional
Yeah.
alcoholic. um, so it wasn't huge in the season because we didn't meet Bobby until the end, but
Yeah.
they made a point of any time after they met Bobby, there was a flask in use. They
Yeah.
used the flask to sprinkle holy water on Dad to see if Dad was possessed. So
Yes,
to me it stood out.
that's definitely for something for the future to
Yeah,
look out for.
yeah. And then this is just well, I said machetes, but that's just in general. Machetes become a
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
That's just part of the weapons in their trunk. Like the Impala's trunk, even though it's not a prop, the trunk itself is
Mhm.
uh just like the Impala. It's so important to the boy's survival.
Yeah.
The last thing I'll say about props that I thought would be things to keep an eye on or things that meant something was the number of cell phones, the number of flip phones, um,
Yeah.
that they are so important because it's how do they keep touch with each other? Is like Dad's not picking up his phone. Dean's not picking up, Dean's called me 4 times. Something must be wrong. He's not picking up.
Yeah.
Something must be wrong.
Yeah.
So the cell phones, for me, I wrote flip phones, but the cell phones are, I think, a huge prop because when the boys don't have their flip phones, something's wrong.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Mhm.
So that's all I wrote for notable props. Did you have anything?
I literally just wrote down Dad's journal and EMF.
Great. Which are definitely two of
Yeah.
the biggest things.
Yeah. And I
Um
probably would have thought of the Impala, but it's just so
it's
obvious. It's just like, well, I mean, yeah, the Impala, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Especially given that in the final episode of season 1, it's obliterated by
I
a
know.
semi truck, which was heartbreaking.
Yeah.
I had a couple of wardrobe notes.
Okay.
Nothing major, but my general take on the wardrobe in general is that there were different characters had different accent pieces that helped point out storylines. It wasn't in every episode, but when they did make a point to draw your attention to like Missouri's feng shui necklace, and
Yeah.
to in Faith, I've forgotten the actress's name, but the character, the woman who has the brain tumor,
Mhm.
she had a saint's medal on, and it was the saint of
Mhm.
cancer,
Yeah.
just little things like that, that when wardrobe can, they would impact the plot line. In
Mhm.
Scarecrow, the one of
The
the guys
ring.
who is an implementer of keeping the ring, yeah, his ring matched the Nordic runes of the ring of the tree.
Mm.
That
Yeah.
was the power of the Scarecrow. I mean, just the little things like that, that again, in the general watching of an episode, it's not going to make a difference. But for
Yeah.
me, if I zoomed in on it, I was like, oh my gosh, that means so much. I mean, it just
Yeah.
ties certain, plot points together.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
and just in general, the boys, that the in season one, the general look of the boys is, flannels and jeans, and
Mhm.
old
Those
leather coat.
jackets. Yeah.
Yeah, not dirty, not unkempt, just
No,
well
but
worn and
yeah.
rugged and ready
Yeah.
for basically anything. They
Mhm.
could eat where they needed to eat, not worry about dress codes. If they needed something like a priest costume, they could wear the priest
Yeah.
costume. But their general look is just everyday, rugged, ready to go,
Mhm.
wear. And I really appreciated that. They never looked dirty unless, Dean jumped off a bridge into the mud. And
Yeah.
yeah, and I mean, later we can talk about Dean's, Samulet, and that's
Mhm.
not part of it's not part of season one.
No. No.
But the
Just in
fact that
just
you
in just in skin when it was definitely
how
a
you
track
def-
a tracking device to denote Skinwalker Dean from real
real Dean,
Dean.
yeah, yeah. But it's, I mean, who would think to look for that? That's what I love,
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
somebody took the time to make it important,
Mhm.
and it worked. If the designers and the artists and the writers took the time to make those details a point, then
Yeah.
we should be looking for them. So I had a question for you. We haven't talked about, and I don't know if we will. Guest stars on the show.
Mhm. Mhm.
Do you have a favorite guest appearance? Whether
I
it's the actress or actor themselves, or the character that they played.
I have a list of 4 in which
Ooh.
they're both the same, I loved them as the actress, and
Hmm.
their character,
And the character. Okay.
which is Amy Ackers from Dead in the Water, Julie
You didn't see me,
Benz,
but
yeah, I did see you.
I.
Julie Benz from Faith,
Yes.
both of those obviously were just like, "Oh my god, this is from the Buffyverse." It was a cool little shout out.
Yeah.
Loretta Devine as Missouri Mosley. I
Yes.
particularly loved Missouri Mosley. There was just something about her that was just comforted by her,
Can
you know what I mean?
Yes. Yes, exactly. Exactly.
And then, of course, Jim Beaver, which I can count as a guest star in this particular season.
Right. Right. Okay. I wrote down one character.
Okay.
And I thought about it, but it's because I remember in the moment feeling that I really connected to this person. And
Mhm.
it was Officer Kathleen from the Benders.
Oh yeah, yeah, she was really yes.
Uh and I think I really, really liked her because she wasn't a love interest. She wasn't a
Mhm.
potential love interest. She was a strong character who also supported the heroes. She could have flipped them the other way. She could have been a thorn in their side.
Mhm.
Um, but she didn't. She believed in the boys,
Yeah.
and not because she knew that they were the Winchesters,
Yeah.
Um, and she was strong and thoughtful, and she had her own backstory. She had her own reason for doing the things she was doing. And she also, she made some questionable decisions, one of which got them captured.
Yeah.
you know um but in the end, she was just her own person, and I loved the way she was portrayed.
Yeah.
And she was strong, but she wasn't like over the top, like overcompensating for being a woman in a cop's
Mhm.
position.
Mhm. Mhm.
She was just a good female character. So that was my my favorite guest star. I mean, and Jim Beaver, I wanted to say him, but I'm glad you did, because I was like, yes, we know right now he's a guest star. And honestly, in this episode, he isn't the Bobby that we know him to be. I mean,
No, no.
he's got a
And
glimmer of it
right. And he was intended at that point in time, and in that episode, he
to
was
just be a
intended to be a
glimmer.
guest star. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would say in that episode and in that element, Bobby not my biggest standout. I
Mm.
knowing Bobby, seeing
Mhm.
Bobby,
Mhm.
it definitely made my heart beat like, yay, it's
Mhm.
Bobby.
Mhm.
If I was watching it for the first time, I wouldn't have known to be like, yay, it's Bobby.
Mhm.
Whereas like watching Kathleen, or Officer Kathleen, I was like, I'm drawn to this character.
Mhm. Mhm.
The Amy Acker character was perfect.
Mhm.
She was perfect with, I mean, she was, as far as like scary movie actresses go,
Yeah.
she was perfect.
Yes.
She played terror very well. She also was the loving mom,
Mhm.
kind of the sexy mom at the same time, but not
Yeah.
trying to be sexy mom.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I felt she was maybe not my favorite guest character
mhm,
out of this list, of my short little list.
yeah,
But still, all of these people had more well-rounded characters than most of the season. I feel maybe that's just because I liked the actresses, but like Loretta Devine, I didn't know who she was when I first saw her as Missouri Mosley.
right.
I
But you
just
loved her as Missouri
yes,
Mosley,
she
right?
she sticks in my mind. Like she's been
Yep.
there forever since the very first time that I saw her as this character. I was just like, oh my god, this woman.
Yes, that's exactly how I felt too. I was like
Yeah,
instant connection, instant
yeah,
like I want to watch this. I
yeah,
want to see what she does. Yeah.
yeah,
That's what I have
yeah. That's what I
for
have too.
season 1, and I
No,
liked the season. I want to watch the next season. There's
yep,
definitely moments where I was like enough already with the dad story, you
yeah,
know. But I'm not a guy. I didn't grow up with a brother, with only a brother and, daddy issues,
right,
so I don't know how real this struggle actually is.
right.
So for me to be like, get over it,
Yeah,
communicate better,
yeah,
just tell them how you feel,
yeah, yeah.
So I want to say that I understand. I just know that it's not my story.
Right.
But there's definitely moments of me saying, God, get over yourselves.
Uh huh.
Um, but at the same time, like I've said, I just want them to always get along.
Yeah,
So when they don't, it's like I don't like it when everybody
yeah,
fights. But
yeah,
that's their journey.
yeah.
That's what their journey is.
Should we wrap up the wrap up?
We shall.
All right. Well, that's it for season one,
I
officially
can't believe it. Oh my gosh, we did it. Season 1. I'm so
in the
excited.
books.
Yes.
Wow.
Boom. Close that book.
Can't wait to
Good
pull out
job.
my new shiny new DVD set of season two.
I get to start a whole new notebook.
Yeah. I have. Do I have room? I might be able to squeeze another season in this notebook.
Oh, I
I'm
can.
gonna make it work.
No, I have 6 pages left in this notebook, so I am not even gonna. So, yay, Sammy, this was great. I had a good time. I hope everyone had
I
a
did
good time
too.
listening.
Yes,
Um,
agreed.
I'm glad I'm rewatching it. It's great writing. It's good fun.
Yeah,
So,
it's fun. Yeah, that's what it is. It's not like um
it's
a
not
beautiful
brain
piece of
surgery.
cinema, right? Exactly.
No. But it has its moments, It
Totally.
has some really cool cinematography. It's got some
Mhm.
breakout, CGI sometimes.
Yes. Yes.
um
No, I know when I like when I'm browsing on Twitter sometimes and just every now and then a random tweet will come up that just says, "Man, early seasons of Supernatural, the camera work and the lighting or the what have you is just amazing." And it's
yeah.
yeah, it really
Yeah.
is. It's stand out. Thank you everyone so much for joining us on this season 1 journey. Thank you again for the 1,000 downloads that we hit last time. Again, I know I've said it a million times. I'm sorry, but we won't have any new content for a little while we're working or traveling, and also just kind of building up a little bit of a buffer again, a library.
We're coming back. We just got to actually
Yes.
do the comeback.
Yes, exactly. So, not sure when that's going to be, but it won't be very long. So, while we are building up our season 2 content, please subscribe, like, follow, rate anywhere that you find podcasts or that allow ratings for podcasts. It's a huge help if you do. And thank you to those who already have. Makes us feel real warm, fuzzy inside when we read those good things. So we will see you sometime in the near future. Again, we will totally tell you when that's going to happen on all of the social media channels. We are at Salt and Burn This Pod on Facebook and Instagram, and at Salt and Burn This on Twitter. And we will see you soon for season 2. Bye.
Bye.